Yes.
Say the same bunch.
We can go find three. To do interview. And three years.
Who's also true?
Well, I'm just going to thank all of them here today to come out to join us. And so, and before I start, I just want to this will go. So essentially, present total properties and any board members. Sites and chunk questions, as I mentioned before, just questions, and review meeting, and so just recap of the stuff so far. We went through the project approval process, and this meeting will be focusing on grant project proposals and donation proposals that will be used. So there are three project proposals and one donation. Just to remember, we're still waiting to hear about applications last year, moving to hopefully by 2. What was it? The vaccine. Yes. Yeah. This is, more. But anyway, so we still with our first project that all started with this smoking farm. So unfortunately, Stephen said the it lived in the flash for the lived here for a while. Coming back and forth to Florida. So they're kind of if you're hoping because it might not be but regardless for forward. So the slope property is 122 acres on Chicken Creek Road. So there's specific slope. The entire property is forested, and I did some calculations using GIS, and it's contiguous about 45 acres already. And so application for and it's in one of our priority areas. It's to so currently there are no set aside 1 acre for farmstead right on Century Creek, and then right behind set aside for future And so the photo that's got right is that way. So it's arms, and then kind of right back to trees as well. So there's a lot of history with this property and sorry, we're out this side. Yeah, I think one of the two best that we witnessed really talk about the history of the law and all that. Is, history. Then the key thing for me was this one so this is for this it is the force and yes. That force and let's say we're doing this on concentration. Service. It is, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, we offered to take this up to the ridge and there's I'm seeing it's there, but we didn't have time to. Okay, great. So next, the Okabuchi Farm is 45 more acres. It's 91.2% prime service and is currently dispatched to Garrett Farmer, and he does hay on the country fields and the corn. Crop, purpose areas, and this project over on NCPA ordinance. There currently is one farm. They don't have fence. But we are just doing small farms, equipment, that impact storage future. And then probably 800 that will be excluded from easement. The homeowners association is to have solar property it's more efficient to supply the homes. So talking with the grant agency suggested with that. And there is for access that excluded area and then else. That's the plan for that property. And so the picture is not requiring comes from property that's no longer. So it's easy to that where the first type is there's no next week, she is fun. More 70 acres on North Branch Road. So we only have this property and there's 30% times the working farm, field panel, alfalfa as well. It's in a priority conservation forest area, and it is essentially farms. There's currently extreme litigation over the property. I think that will probably be completed once this is really process. And it's time to go. Currently, the paint, in the top area there, the current outside. So, what's in the area, includes structures on concrete and and then two future aspects. Future aspects. Each of those. And then of course. Yeah. We have new to the surrounding property, great times and power. Apples and well, that was property, and services. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is a great project. In this project. And yes, we're in our very much. And everything. It's like. It shifts to me like days with the water and then bugs and things. It's- we can have this, it's not proven. Around that is there. You know, funds, also own it. The process is, and some of them are they're not excused to be out. They are, but it's only older. Right. It's great that. And also the.
So just so when we're looking at this, we've got everybody, so we got the big blue area is the farmstead, that's right, and then the kind of purple area is the excluded. And then the other ones are the two of them are already home sites, right, and an additional one.
Yes, well, one of those are home site, the other two are future.
Okay, oh, and then you excluded the other home site.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's what's excluded, okay, okay. Yeah, I think it's very strong project and, I'm excited. Anything else, Ann?
No. We have Honeynote Farm, so Elizabeth and Darren's Shrub. It's 37 acres on Upper Flat Creek Road, 38% prime soils. And it is a working farm, so there's hay, sheep, few llamas and chicken as well.
A few goats.
Goats. And it's in one of our priority conservation focus areas, and this is a donation. And so it's, if you can see, so Wayne wasn't able to make it today, but it does adjoin Claxton Farm. So that's a nice chunk to add to the already protected piece of land in that area. And there are currently 3 house sites, but the one in red here closest to the road will be excluded from the easement. And then the other 2 will be in the easement. And then there are some agricultural structures, barns, sheds on the property. And so those will be in farmstead building envelopes. So we had Steve and Wayne join us out on the property. It started to get really hot.
It was a hot day, that's okay. Yeah.
But so, and Steve, if you had anything you wanted to add?
Nothing particular, I mean, just, good example of, diversified commodities and, utilizing a lot of the, land that's, lays well enough to crop or to hay. And, then I got some really steep forest land, as you go on back on the property. So, yeah, just a good fit.
We have a forest management plan too, if you needed to mention that.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Yes.
I'm sorry.
But you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, good file. And I think we had talked to you.
That's been 8 years. That's out with them. Sorry.
That's the the 2 house sites, the farmstead, and then you just exclude the 1 house that's right beside the road.
Mhm.
Okay, and so it's still around 37 acres, give or take just a little bit. Okay. Yeah, and again, it's great when we start making these connections, and that's when it's connected to the other conservation work we've done. So I think that's.
And this, so remind me at the bottom, that's a canyon
Yeah,
or.
to the, yeah, it's a supposedly 2,000 acres. Young Life owns it, and then
Does that connect to this other conservation?
I'm not quite sure how the direction.
I think it does.
That must be on the other side. Is that Abdullah Springs? I don't even know where that other property
This
is.
Conservation, do you know?
I want to say Taylor property, but I don't know.
That's obviously on the other side of the mountain, so I'm just not sure. But the neighbor is back from Colorado who has a long history with Young Life, and I'm gonna talk to him about what their plans are. I've always been told it won't ever be developed, but.
It's not an easement though, right?
Yeah, no, not that I know.
Well, one thing that's always nice is to hear from each of the landowners too about why you're interested in doing this. That's one of the parts that we always enjoy hearing from you, because in that way we get to know a little bit more about the property and your interest in this. You want to start, Elizabeth?
Sure. I'm not used to talking about it with so many people. Well, I guess I've been here 25 years, so so I wished I'd had a century farm to preserve, and I'm really excited to hear that. But soon after I moved here, I came to realize that there's a lot of value in the area with small farms and raising food. And then, of course, development increased around here on the mountainsides. And I've always just loved looking at the mountains and the houses. And then on our road, when we moved onto Upper Flat Creek Road, Claxton Farm, it's, to me, I love the other valleys, but for the areas we were looking at, I just thought this was one of the prettiest valleys, and I just don't want to see in the future, hopefully there'd be more in addition to the Claxtons that would just stay without being a housing development. And there is some useful, it's called Hobby Knob Farm. We are getting some hay, and I'm raising wool sheep, and it's, but my idea would be eventually it would be when I can't do that anymore, that someone would be able to come on and do some more, type of whatever, animals or, crops, if edible crops, whatever, because there is enough property to do that. And we are on the creek. So we do have water, Upper Flat Creek, and part of it has had a little section of it. The previous owner got into I don't know what it was called, an easement on to a riparian buffer easement. And when they added a stock tank and kept the animals out, because they used to, the Claxtons over the years had leased it for cattle for their cattle. And so so there is some water management there already on that section, which is up on that section where that barn is. And a little while back, my husband is really into finding arrowheads. So if any of you ever plow and you want to let somebody come walk your property, let me know. But he just went up on a little ridge that's next to our house, which is way up the driveway there. And I don't know, he took his little roto, I don't know, the tractor up and just scuffed up a little bit. And darn if he didn't find a beautiful, perfect arrowhead that he asked one of his friends that's a fairly, knowledgeable, and said it was probably about 3,000 years old. And I just was like, well, that gives us a really good reason to protect this land a little bit from all that history. It just feels like the right thing to do. Something I kind of had in my family. My parents had some property, but it was never in a place where we wanted to live. And I would have loved to have saved his 300-acre farm outside of Montgomery, Alabama, but I didn't want to live there. And they had to cash out of it to take care of mother. And we don't have to, hopefully, do that. I want to pass it on to my daughter, and hopefully make it affordable for her. And then someone can, do the property management.
Well, thanks for sharing.
I hope that helps a little. Yeah.
Elizabeth, I think I need to sell your feed more often.
Oh, what's your name, Chase?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, you did. I used to kind of get, it's been a while. Yeah, those chickens that I can't seem to keep from dying lately, but with the predators. You did, yeah. Yeah, nice. I think I've bought some meat from y'all in the past too. You're not there anymore though. Yeah, okay. Oh, cool. Thanks for remembering me. That's nice.
The reason, yes, it is a century farm. And it's my husband's family's farm. It's never been unfarmed. It's been farmed the whole entire time. It's currently being farmed, and we have 2 sons, and we have 4 grandbabies here on earth, and we're trying to keep it, and we're doing everything we can. We're searching every avenue to be able to make sure that this is here for them. As an aside, as I mentioned, some of that property that you saw around it are owned by other family members, which we are trying to get to the point where we can talk to them about also putting that in a conservation situation. But we have other irons in the fire right now that we haven't been able to get them together, but we're very serious about keeping this as farmland as long as possible. And that just, for instance, one of our other family members, another uncle, who's now it's the cousin, it's Neil's first cousin, and he's made the comment, when we drive on the Morgan Branch Road, it's like time has just stood still. And people coming across from Wildberry Lodge, I don't know if you know where that is, they stop all the time and they're taking pictures. You know, and in this day and age, I'm not quite sure, are they taking pictures or what are they doing? And so we're like, would they actually get off and stand in your yard? Like, what are you people doing? But evidently, we're learning this is something that is just going around. People like to visit, or they just like, the sun shining on the house at that moment. But we understand that we're just stewards here. God's given us this opportunity just for a little while. We don't get to live here forever, so, you know, we just pass it along and just try to be good stewards of with what you've been given. And that's our heart.
Thank you.
So my wife and I have lived in North Carolina for 6 years on and off, and 3 years full time. And bought property in the Okochee area 12 years ago. We have a very like-minded group of homeowners that are all anxious to see the area of the homeowners is preserved. The developer that developed the property, I think showed a lot of restraint when he developed the property, because there could be another 20 homes where the fields are now. And without additional consideration, when you put things in incentive for people to buy the lots that are there to sell on the hillside, contributed that property to the homeowners. We have a very photographed farm. So when we tell people where we live, over that barn, they don't read the sign.
Yeah.
And that barn has been photographed, it's been on magazine covers. And one of our goals will be to maybe set the barn up so we can actually use it. It doesn't need fire code right now, there's only one way out of the loft.
Yeah.
And so that will be something that we'd like to do, but the barn is at the moment used and intended to be used only for the homeowners. We have no commercial aspirations to use the barn for anything. We have seen a lot of development happen in our valley. And the current homeowners unanimously feel that it's something worth protecting. And we know that much like committees and boards like this rotate, is we want to take away any opportunity for this property to get monetized and developed. And signage is important. So I wouldn't have known that this was an opportunity unless I saw the Preserved for Forever sign on Brush Creek Road. My wife and I do a lot of biking. And there's a lot of places that we don't bike anymore because it's just too much traffic. And Lower Brush Creek Road goes nowhere. You can only get out at two ends, and there's no other purpose other than to be on the road, which is something that's very attractive to us. And we just got good news from the county that our road is going to get repainted in 2026. So we're looking forward to that. And so Tony Nisbet down the street, we were unaware, has done some conservation on his property. And you know, once I think we're in play, I know that we've gotten some questions about those little signs that we'd love to see that whole out.
Yeah, 92% from soil is very significant, which is great. And is the intention then, because it sounds like you are leasing it to Tony, is that?
So the developer had a standing relationship with Tony and still does.
Okay,
So at the moment, Tony's our farm.
okay.
None of us are farm experts, so we don't know what the best use of that soil is. We've talked about whether we can do something organic. We understand that if you want to do something organic, you literally have to take the fields out of production for a while. So that's, you know, we're open to other ideas. We would prefer not to have livestock. Because first of all, our fences are in horrible shape and we're in the process. We've made a decision to take down the fence across the road from where the homes are and renovate the other fence, but we understand that we have livestock, we have to have fence.
Yes, that's true. Let's do the invisible car.
Fences are not free.
Yeah, that's great.
And not easy to maintain.
Yeah.
I mean,
crops goals, I mean, that's great for growing crops, certainly. And the only reason I was asking the question is the intent to continue having a farm? Because that's, I mean, that's the point of like this program, and especially like going for, these state grants and everything, is specifically.
100% to keep the farm. We know that we're growing corn on one of the 3 fields. We don't know if we should be growing corn on the others. At the moment, we really like the mix of the hay and corn because the hay is never unsightly. So when the corn just came down, that far field isn't like picturesque yet. Maybe when the winter rye comes in a little bit, it'll look a little better. But the intent is to farm fields.
A couple quick things. One, there's a lot of good funding for it being now, but it's in support, so that's one thing. There's good funding through USDA. The other thing, I'm curious about the dairy, I presume it's on dairy barn. Do you know the history of it or?
Of our barn?
Yeah, the age.
So I don't know the real history. There's kind of some rumors of the barn. I have a picture of the barn from like the turn of the century. It's a photograph of a photograph of this old rusty barn. So, I mean, we could do some inquiries, but I don't know. I know that our street used to be called Tweed. And Tweed went across Canyon Creek. And there's a Tweed Chapel. So, you know, this property has not been in the homeowners association's hands for 100 years, that's for sure.
If you do start looking, there's a program called Farm Link through NC State that is kind of a, will connect landowners with prospective producers. And give you some, it might give you some leads there on that, if you need that when the time comes.
It's helpful to know. When we talk to our other neighbors that have similar properties, no one's really monetizing the fields. People are rather happy to get the fields mowed. And we know that one of the things we would have to do to upgrade field financially would be to get rid of the Johnson grass. And that again means taking it out of production for a while. And, it's not exactly the right path to organic, because to get rid of that requires chemicals, or at least that's what we understand.
And you can get rid of it with animals,
Yeah.
but you know, there again, you're gonna be looking at some expenses there, so. Yeah, it'll stand continuous grace.
So you're saying that I'm assuming you're referring to goats.
So not necessarily for Johnson grass, probably cattle or sheep would be better. Goats are browsers more than grazers, so they like a variety. They don't.
So the cows will take it down and eat
Yeah, the
those?
cows will take it down, and they'll keep taking it down because when it's young, it's very desirable for them, very palatable.
How long do you need to have cattle on the property?
So it's.
Get rid of the grass.
That's a good question. Probably gonna be a couple of grazing seasons because it's got a lot of rhizomes, underground structures. It'll cause it to regenerate.
Is it growing season a year or is it growing season a couple times a year?
So for Johnson grass, it's once a year. It's a warm season grass. So yeah, basically June through September around here.
2 to 3 years, you need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Without animals.
Without, yeah.
We grazed out Johnson grass from one of our fields within 2 years. It was a hay pasture, and then we grazed it, and Johnson grass is gone.
Because it's sweet, they'll keep going after it if you let them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then how do we keep the seeds from blowing onto our property from the?
There's the issue.
Yeah.
Well, but they eat it down before it goes to seed, if you have.
Well,
Sort
if
of.
the neighbors aren't grazing.
Oh, true. That's right.
Just saying, that you have a very good resource here. So Steve is head of our North Carolina extension here for Buncombe County. So you may want to take his card and reach out.
We would gladly welcome the opportunity of getting seasoned advice.
Glad to do it.
For fencing isn't as expensive. You can use some just electric,
They would.
well-behaved cows.
Yeah.
Well-behaved cows, you can just
Two
do.
strands
I don't know what Ann does, but some of them do.
Yeah, Tony would be
Once they're trained to it, it works pretty well.
a little bit, sometimes too well.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna touch that. No, I don't wanna go there.
Even if it was 4 years ago, there was something there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Something shocking there.
I found a calf, a newborn calf that had rolled under the
Under,
fence
oh,
in
yeah.
along this swale in the driveway. And luckily it was 6:30 in the morning and I was up and I knew she was in labor the night before and she was not gonna go. She was not gonna save that calf. I luckily, and yeah, I could tell it was probably maybe an hour old at the most. Pushed it up the hill. and-
Yeah.
That's one of the few things that will keep them.
Yeah.
Well, are there any other, do we have any other presentations or,
No, that's it. Yeah, I guess, so basically, I'll just kind of run through next steps from here. So, you know, the board will vote on the projects and then staff will take that vote and recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for their meeting. And then they'll, you know, vote on the recommendation. And then after that, you know, we have the funding to start the grant. Or we'll start the grant application process, that's October through December. And then for the donation easement, once we have the funding, we can just start on the due diligence because we're not waiting on the grant. And then, you know, next spring, the grant representatives reach out to us and we can come out to the property, meet with you all. And then we generally hear back next summer, usually, but like,
Depending on budget.
yes, depending on budgets. Like this year, we're still waiting to hear back, but generally it's July, August. But yes, and we'll keep you informed during this process, of course, but yes, if you have any questions, feel free to ask or reach out to me after this. Otherwise,
I have one thing I forgot when I was talking, and it made me think of it when somebody mentioned solar. More solar on their property,
yes.
but we have some on our rooftop and I hadn't really thought about that, but we would never put in, you know, a huge, is there? If we had to put in more and just put, there wouldn't have to, you know, if we had to put in, if I was able to put in more, it would have to probably go on the ground. You know, for enough panels, would there be any
So we can,
issues with that? I wouldn't even know where it would go at this point, but.
yeah, so there are different recommendations and based on the grant agency versus our easements.
Uh-huh.
And this isn't going through the grant agency, but generally there's a impervious surface area requirement. And so the idea is basically if you're able to keep that impervious surface under 2%.
Oh, like on the house site area. Yes, that's probably where, yeah, that's where all the electric, yeah, that's
Yes.
probably where it would be.
And so generally, as long as
I
it's
see.
within that impervious surface
Okay,
requirement.
I see.
You can have it on the property,
Okay,
but we can chat more.
okay, that's fine.
It
Yeah, I don't want
just
to take time. I
depends
just
what
was
you're-
thinking about that.
Yeah, just what you're envisioning for the property and we just have to plan for it.
I also forgot, oh,
Within your farmstead area or there, because I'm guessing that's your house right there.
yeah, up at the top, yeah,
Okay, and that's at least an acre
right, yeah.
around that, so it
Yeah.
probably was
But-
much would be, it would fit within that.
I also forgot to mention that little piece that's in between us and the Claxtons. 10 of that is my sister's. And we actually bought the whole property together. But because of, I guess, her paying her portion of the taxes, we had to divide out, you know, an official 10 acres for her. And it was originally 50 and she really wanted to be in on this. And I said, well, I don't know how I can do it because your property's too small, but so if there's anything later, we can work out to someone I can talk to refer her to put something on her deed or something like that. So, and then that other little sliver is somebody else and we're never going to do
You're
anything.
saying hers is right here between you and the class.
Yes, it's that little piece. It's about 10 acres plus the neighbors that are like barely an acre. And so they're surrounded by all of us and we, you know, anyway, she wanted hers to be protected too, but it's
And so
mostly.
your sister was wanting to do a donated easement as well?
Well, yeah, she thought we could do it all together because hers is only 10 and actually her part is also in hay in the front. She doesn't have as much, you know, obviously the little front section is pasture and the rest of it is, you know, mountain. So that goes up to the Claxtons and so anyway, maybe there's some way we can someone can tell us how we could deed that on or something to her property deed so that but it would follow it wherever.
You can ask our attorney, with the separate ownership, it's a little bit tricky to do the two.
Yeah.
investments. But we can talk to our attorney and see what might be possible.
Yeah.
Because yes.
I mean, hers would be donated too. It's not, yeah.
Yeah.
I think she hopes her kids will wanna keep her property, but they're a long way away. We'll see. But whatever, we just don't want a big house on the front of that land either, so. The road. Okay, sorry to take up your time.
But
Forgot to mention that.
yeah. But yes, I'll reach out to her attorney and see what might be possible.
Okay, great, thanks.
So these will propose till next fiscal year.
Yeah, yeah, for this,
Okay.
yes, for this.
We did.
Right.
I'm sorry, you didn't.
Yes, well, so much your. Yes.
I think we were in the- I didn't see this right here. I wanted to be. That's what.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
This grant cycle with accident.
Oh, sorry, it was for.
So that's the last.
That'll be this grant. Yes, the next grant cycle will be next October through 2025.
So, Autumn, do you need a vote on each of these from us, or is anyone any discussion?
Yes, I have slides of transaction costs estimates as well. And then if you have any questions on any of these, but yeah, these include like appraisals, the survey costs, legal fees and closing costs.
So, you just develop each project individually, or can we do them as a group if no one has any objections?
I think unless there are objections, you can do them as.
Okay, just so I know, so okay, transaction, you said it, okay, close. Say it again, please.
So it includes the appraisals, the survey, the legal fees, and the closing costs. And environmental assessments as well.
If that's something that we're doing now.
Yeah, the grants require it, they require an environmental assessment.
Okay, so we don't have to do that on the Hobby Knob then.
Yes, we want, yeah, the Hobby Knob donations that we had.
Alright. And then just what will be you say NCDA or USDA on the farm and Fairview?
Yes.
What will be?
The determining
Yeah.
factor, that will mostly be based on our applications from last year. So we applied for, I think last year's application, we had one USDA application and the rest for NCDA. And so if any of those don't get funded and we want to reapply, then we would reapply and that could switch back to USDA.
Okay.
The high percentage of prime source.
Right, yes.
Thinking that it'll be a good one.
Yeah.
And then just so I know too, the Shady Place Farm, why is the budget so much higher on that one than the other ones?
Yes, so the Shady Place Farm, the survey, well, first the survey was more expensive because it's forested and some steeper slopes and 170 acres. But for this one, the appraisal was also more expensive because they have family nearby. And so our appraisers told us that anytime there's family nearby, that the appraisal has to be, from my understanding, has to be done a little differently because that affects the family's home or land values. And so I think it requires more work and investigation into the surrounding properties, and that in turn makes the appraisal more expensive.
Okay. All right.
And it's surrounded by.
Okay.
So this is the amount needed just to get the ball rolling. This doesn't have to do with the grants or anything.
Correct.
This is-
Yeah, this is what it costs.
Okay.
Yeah, all the due diligence. Now, for most of these, we wouldn't. we start expending, if we need to do like the environmental site assessment, some of these things we can start a little bit earlier, but really we need the funding for, forest management plans and we need some of the applications to have the budget, but we don't start really expending the money until we hear from the grant saying we'll start. Yeah, and so right now it's just a grant application, and then next year it gets approved, then we'll start the survey appraisal and spending the money.
And they have to sign off on this agreement too, right? And yes, because you've been through that. So that way, if we had spent some, they backed out. Yes.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to accept transaction costs for the 4 farms in question. It's been moved and seconded to accept the transaction cost budget for the core operations on the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the motion passes. So we can go ahead with those. All right. At this time, do any board members have a report? So the next one, we need to appoint a vice chair. So and I understand through the grapevine that we have a willing participant / victim. Is that you could be?
That's right.
All in favor? I think we're smart.
Right.
All right, well, it was worth a shot.
Yeah. Are you willing? Are you interested?
I was about to nominate Mark. We're gonna see, I was happy to you.
It would be good to have someone though, because we ran into that
We
issue.
read of that, I think last meeting when I had to be out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's and I think if either of you, if y'all want to draw straws or arm wrestle or whatever, I think either of you would be great, but it's just a matter of, you just do what I do if I happen to be, it's not terribly complex, and Omni and Ariel will handhold you through it if you have any complications, and Terry's pretty knowledgeable of these procedures as well. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about being new if that's where we're in, but I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, I'd rather get a year of those.
Okay, is that a nomination then, Mark?
Second.
That, there's a good reason you haven't talked about that.
I'm not gonna.
I'm gonna stand on the line. She already said no.
I'm happy.
Sounds good. All right, it's been moved and seconded and accepted by the nominee to take over the vice chair duties. All in favor, say aye. All right, looks like it's unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Vice President. So gave you time to say,
Well, thank you for being well.
Yeah, these are the side we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Taking it on.
I appreciate your comments.
So next we have the applications for VAD and EVAD.
So we actually don't have any new applications or new ones this month.
So that was easy. We can just go to the farmland preservation report.
Yes, so we took the Nesbitt and Farm Fortner projects to the Board of Commissioners a couple of weeks ago, and those transaction costs have been approved. Like we mentioned, still waiting to hear back on our grant applications from last year. and hopefully we'll be able to hear back from them soon, so then we can really set our applications this year. We'll start the grant applications themselves, but we'll have a better idea of Okoboji specifically.
And what was his name again? Bruce. Thank you.
And so something that we were talking about last month, you know, we have 3 new board members, Wayne, Susie, and Mark, and last year when we had a couple of new board members, we were able to do like a little presentation about the board, the history of the board, what kind of our programs, what we do, processes, things like that. And so I thought, you know, it might be good for us to kind of revisit that presentation since we have some new members. And it's always a nice refresher for our older members. And so hopefully we can do that. We don't have anything really on the agenda for next month, so hopefully we can do that next month. And we're also hoping to have Whitney Meadows from the tax department come and talk about PUV. And they had some scheduling conflicts, and we had, you know, approval processes and things like that. So hopefully that can also happen this month. So that's our hope for the next few weeks.
And one thing on that, I mean, I was just wondering, like on the terms and where we are, and who's getting close to rotating off, we got new folks coming down. I'd be interested to see where we land there. But
Sounds good. Yeah, I think we had Stacy Woody sent us that the last time we were trying to figure out.
yeah,
And so I'll try and send that back out.
Yeah, because Ed doesn't like it. It's not much anymore, does it?
Yeah,
What's going on?
He gave me a call this morning. Same thing.
Is it this year his term? I can't remember what she said the last time. I knew it was
It was
fairly soon.
I think so.
It might be next spring. I know it's close, but I couldn't remember exactly. But I'll send that out in the future.
I got to step into his role. I was looking at all the money. I was like, what would that ask? So to the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so easement project updates, we completed the EA for the Larson easement, and working on the baseline documentation report. Same thing with the Wesley easement, we'll start on the baseline pretty soon. And as I mentioned, Garrett Cove, Southern Ag requested we put a hold on that easement until they figure out the boundary dispute with Teague, so that we can concentrate on those at the same time. So we're still waiting to hear back. The Schluter easement, we got some revisions from NCDA, we included those, and then we'll be putting that for additional funding this grant cycle, so October through December. And that's separate from these, there's a separate pot, or it's a separate application pool from what we were presenting as new applications. The Ramsey easement, the grant representatives visited in July. Our documents, any revisions that they gave us, we've included them and submitted them, and we're just waiting to hear back from them. But we hope to close that pretty soon. The Jasper Wood easements, we completed a bunch of the documents, turned them in, along with any revisions they had, and I started on the baseline documentations this fall and hopefully have them completed by November. And then Splendor Valley, they're currently going through the subordination agreement. Ag South Credit Unions going through that process right now. And the Clark easement will be reaching out to their lender, the new lender that they're hoping to subordinate with this month to get that hopefully started again soon, and we'll be able to close at the end of this year. And then both Worthing and Creville, we started the survey work, and we actually have a preliminary draft of the Worthing survey, and we can start working on the rest of the due diligence for that project. But yes, and so then we'll start the survey. We had the initial site visit and we'll start the survey next.
Is Soden the one in Fairview?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Sounds like things are moving along. Hopefully a lot of gems with the two with the boundary and the.
Yes.
SAC will get, resolved.
Yeah, they've been talking with. They had an appraisal who did some work before, and then they hired someone to do work for the, or an updated survey for the easement, and there's some conflict between what they're both saying, so they're trying to get that resolved.
Okay. So it's good. All right, folks, looks like we went through all our items except for announcements and any further discussion from the board. Anyone have anything they'd like to bring up at this time?
Oh, one quick question. So there was one project that we had looked at, I think it was still when Ariel was here, it was down on the river, close to the Sandy Mush game lands. And I thought that was actually gonna be one of the potential ones for a grant too, that did something.
I think that was, I think, so there's one other one that I was talking to a landowner by the Greenlands, but they're still in the very early. Like question, they're still gathering information. The second one, I think I know you're talking about, it's maybe 50-ish acres by the Greenlands.
So,
It was mostly just a introductory meeting, and he seemed interested. But I'll follow back up with him. He didn't reach out after we talked to him. You know, gave him some information. He wasn't ready right then and there. He was interested in these, but he was.
okay,
But I'll follow back up and see if he's not.
Well, our farms will be farm tour this weekend.
oh, it's,
I'm sure that's gonna be a good thing. We're gonna try and see. We're kind of stressed.
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday.
Well,
oh, man, but what are you doing at your farm stop? Selling meat?
yeah, we will be.
Yeah.
We love the produce from the couplets.
Okay, and then are you doing tours or anything too?
Yeah, just sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good. Wait a minute.
Hopefully there'll be normally there's a good bit of traffic for those, so, yeah, but that'll be a good event. Weather's supposed to be, yeah, I said, well, the weather's like tropical system, they said might kick a lot of rain. Oh, really? Okay. I didn't recall that would be that, it's just out, so, okay. All right, well, that's agriculture, isn't it? Yeah. All right, anyone else, before we adjourn? All right, if not, we'll just,
Motion to adjourn.
motion given, all in favor? All right.